Hello, welcome to the I Hate Drums podcast with me, Mark, your teacher for this series. In this series of the podcast, we're going to be working through my new book, I Hate Drums Intermediate 1, which is designed to fit the grade 3 level. You can find this on my website, www.ihitdrums.co.uk, where you can also sign up for a free groove starter pack if you're a complete beginner. Hopefully you've already worked through my first book, A Beginner's Guide, and actually listened to the previous series of the podcast, which is all about working through that book. But today we're going to get stuck into Lesson 1 of Intermediate 1, which is flams. If you've heard Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, you'll have heard a flam. When the drums kick in right at the start after the guitar intro, those are flams on the snare drum. In fact, the word flam almost has that same sound in it. The space between the F and the L in the word flam, the fl part of it, that kind of simulates what the flam sound is on the drum. It's basically a double hit, so both sticks are going to hit the drum, but not at exactly the same time, but also not too far apart. So there's a slight delay between the two hits. And this can be a really simple way of spicing up some fills. Here's what a flam sounds like. Now there are different versions of a flam, and by that I mean there's a right-hand flam and a left-hand flam. Both of these should sound exactly the same, but they are played differently. Choosing whether or not to play a right-hand flam versus a left-hand flam doesn't always matter. It depends on what you're doing on the kit. For example, if you're moving between the hands and then to the bass drum, back to the hands, back to the bass drum, it doesn't really matter which flam you use. However, if you're playing a roll and there's a flam, let's say, at the beginning of it, if you're playing that roll right, left, right, left, right, left, then you're going to want to make sure that the first hit, which is normally a right hand, is played as a right hand flam, if that's where the flam is being added. This ensures that the original sticking is maintained. So whenever you add a flam to a roll, you want to make sure that you're accounting for what hand is normally being played at that point and exchanging that for the correct flam. So let's start with the right hand flam. You'll see this illustrated on page 7 of the book as exercise 1.1. Above this, you'll see 3 images. The first image illustrates the starting point of the sticks. So when you're doing a right hand flam, it's actually the right hand which is going to be the main strike. And by that I mean the most powerful strike. So to make this more powerful, we're going to have it higher up than the left stick. And that means that when both sticks strike the drum, one is going to have more force than the other. In this case, the right hand. The left hand stick should just be hovering above the drum. From here, you want to lift the hands up at an equal speed, maintaining that distance between the hands the whole time. You don't want to increase or decrease the spacing between the hands that you're starting with. And once you've lifted these, you're going to bring them down at the same speed as well. And now the space between those two sticks is going to result in the sticks striking the drum at a slightly different time. Now when you first try this, you might find that the spacing between the two hits is either too much or too little. And that's fine. This is new. But from this point, you want to adjust how much space you have between those two sticks in order to create the sound you heard a moment ago. So let's try exercise 1.1, and all of these hits should be right hand flams. So get started in that position with the right hand higher up and the left hand hovering over the drum. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, moving on to left-hand flams. If you look on page 8, we have exercise 1.2, left-hand flams. The notation looks very similar to exercise 1.1, only the sticking has changed underneath. The 3 images above this also look very similar to the previous exercise, only you'll see that the sticks are the other way around. So for the left-hand flam, the left hand should be starting higher up, and the right-hand stick should be hovering over the drum. See if you can recreate the same spacing you had between the sticks when you were doing the right hand flam and adapt that for the left hand sticking. I should probably add at this point that the main strike should be falling with the metronome click, and the smaller hit is actually coming in slightly earlier than that. So let's get the hands ready for the left hand flam, with the left hand higher up and the right stick hovering over the drum, and let's try 4 left hand flam hits. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay, hopefully starting to get the hang of these right hand flams and left hand flams, but feel free to rewind the audio and give it another try. But if you're feeling confident with the flams, let's have a look at exercise 1.3, alternate flams. In this exercise, you're going to start with a right hand flam on beat 1, followed by a left hand flam on beat 2, and then a right hand flam on beat 3, and a left hand flam on beat 4. So with each beat of the metronome, you're constantly switching from right to left to right to left. So get your hands in the starting position for a right hand flam, and let's give it a try. Here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Now hopefully, if all is going well, all of your flams should sound quite similar. But you may find that one of those flams just feels more comfortable. And in a lot of circumstances when you need to use a flam, you can probably prioritize that more comfortable version. But there are some instances, as I said earlier, where the choice of flam matters. We'll get into that a bit later. On page 9 of the book, we have exercise 1.4. This is a similar group of patterns that we had at the end of a beginner's guide when we were playing quarter notes and adding dynamic hits, so loud strikes. This time around, we're going to be adding flams to those positions. We won't run through those exercises here, but feel free to stick on a metronome at 60 BPM and work through each of those exercises twice around before moving on to the next one. Let's take a look at page 10, where we have exercise 1.5. If you work through a beginner's guide, you might recognize this set of rhythms. We've played this before with single sticking, double sticking, and paradiddles. Today we're going to use this pattern to help us get more familiar with flams. So wherever there's a quarter note in this exercise, you will be playing a flam. This exercise works on the assumption that you're always playing single sticking. So whether it's quarter notes, eighth notes, or 16th notes, you're always going to be going right, left, left. And that means that in a bar of quarter notes played right, left, you'll be playing a right hand flam, followed by a left hand flam, followed by a right hand flam, followed by a left hand flam, just as we did in exercise 1.3. If this is your first lesson dealing with flams, I think that's more than enough to practice this week. There's still a couple of exercises to go before we move on to a song, but for now I'd like you to focus on those first 5 exercises. If you don't yet have the book, you can find us on my website, www.ihitdrums.co.uk. You can also subscribe to the website to receive regular updates from me, and if you're a total beginner to the drums, when you subscribe, you'll also get access to a free groove starter pack. Next time, we're going to focus on putting these flams around the kit. We've also got a few key grooves to look at before we head on to the tune. And then we'll be looking at the first song in I Hit Drums Intermediate 1, which is called The Flamming Licks. But until next time, enjoy!